Next News, breaking news.
Right now, the screwworm story just got a whole lot bigger. What looked like a livestock parasite scare is turning into something far more explosive. A border security indictment of the previous administration. The Trump administration is making it clear that it didn't appear out of nowhere, and it was not some mystery act of nature. Officials are saying the warning signs were visible for years. The threat moved north in plain sight, and the people in charge when Biden was president failed to act. Now, Democrats are scrambling to change the subject. The question is no longer just how to stop it. The question is who let it happen. Let's get one thing straight right away. Americans should not panic about the food supply. Secretary Brooke Rollins said plainly that the food supply is completely safe. It's not a virus, and the first calf confirmed in South Texas is already healthy and recovering. That matters because the media loves a fear headline. But the story is not just about a calf. It's about whether America's farm belt was left exposed because Washington refused to treat border chaos like a national security threat. And that is where this gets serious. Rollins says that the New World screwworm was eradicated from the United States back in 1966. It stayed away for decades, and then, after the Darien Gap was breached in 2022 during the Biden-Harris administration, the pest surged through Central America, hit Mexico by 2024, and now for the first time in the modern era, there are cases in Texas again. In other words, the Trump administration is drawing a direct line from open border neglect to agricultural danger on American soil. Now, before we go further, pay attention to this because government confusion does not stop at the border, and it definitely does not stop when seniors are choosing health care. If you or someone in your family is on Medicare, this directly affects your wallet. You see, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials. It's all built to overwhelm you, so you pick a plan and never review it again. That is called the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. Chapter simple by design. One call, one advisor, real help. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your priorities, and then compare plans to find what fits. Some people save as much as $1,100 a year. There's no cost to talk with them. Call Chapter at the number you see on your screen. Pause the video, write it down, 910-728-4109, and get clear answers from someone who actually works for you and not the system. Now back to a story where confusion and neglect also carried a very real price for this country. See, here's the twist that the corporate press just won't touch. The most important part of the story is not the bug itself. It is that the Trump administration already knows how to beat it. This country defeated screwworm once before with sterile fly releases, containment, and relentless surveillance. And Rollins says that exact playbook is back, only bigger, faster, and backed by serious money. So if the solution is known, proven, and already underway, then the real debate becomes unavoidable. Why was this allowed to get so close to America again in the first place? So here's Brooke Rollins reassuring us that the food supply is completely safe.
So tell us where we stand and how concerned consumers should be about what's going on with the nation's livestock.
Well, Brian, thank you for having me on. So first, I want to say that the food supply is completely safe, that this is not a disease or a virus. It's a fly that lays an egg in an open wound of an animal, and it can be treated immediately. In fact, the first case that was reported last Wednesday that we confirmed in South Texas, that calf is now healthy, on his way to recovery, and is going to be just fine. So that's the first thing. The second thing I think that's important to understand is where we are in our containment effort on the New World screwworm. We had completely eradicated this back in the 1960s. So a lot of the people who are watching who are from the farm or rural America know this, that in the 1960s it was pushed back into Mexico, then into Central America, and back past the Darien Gap in South America. So for 60 years this has not been anywhere near our country. But not surprisingly, starting in about 2021, with the open border policies of the last administration and the millions of illegal immigration that was happening through South America, Central America, the screwworm began to move with the people. They were moving with them, their livestock. So in 2021, it hit Central America. 22, 23, it hit Mexico, and in 24, it began to make its way towards Texas. It was shocking when I came into office for the first time in February of last year. The last administration had 5 full-time people working screwworm. Listen, when we found this first case confirmed last Wednesday, we have now over 100 people working full-time preparing for this moment. So at the end of the day, we will solve this with more sterile fly drops, which is a very elaborate way to fix this. They did it in the 60s. We're now bringing it back. Last year we broke ground. We're going to be able to start pushing back and eradicating in just a couple of months. But until then, the word is food supply is safe, but for our ranchers and anyone around animals, especially in South Texas, look for any kind of wound where a fly could lay an egg. And we're there to treat it with our partners in Texas.
So she says the food supply is safe, ties the outbreak straight to Biden's open border mess. Now watch her shut down Amy Klobuchar after Democrats try to pin this on staffing cuts instead of their own failures.
We discussed early on New World screwworm, and the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service has lost 25% of its staff, including more than 300 employees in veterinary services alone since the administration came in. How do you plan on ensuring that each of these critical threats, such as New World screwworm, receives individualized resources? We're very concerned about this.
Yes, ma'am. As I mentioned, a year and a half ago, there were 10 APHIS employees working full-time, a total of 10 working full-time all in. Now we've got over 120. So we've increased the amount of employees in APHIS working on New World screwworm by 1,000% in the last 14 months. So as you can see, we're prioritizing where the big threats are as we're working to ensure that we're meeting all of the needs across the country.
So after the Senate dodge from Klobuchar, Rollins comes back with the numbers. Here she lays out the crackdown already underway, $1.3 billion deployed, new sterile fly tech, and Texas production facility moving fast.
Screwworm to move north for the first time in 50 years, beginning in 2022 when the Darien Gap was breached, into 2023 when the screwworm began moving at rapid pace up through Central America and hitting Mexico in 2024 under the last administration. We know this development is a serious threat, but it did not catch us off guard. We've established the 20-kilometer movement zone, expedited targeted release of sterile flies in the affected area. We've increased the trapping for flies along the border and ramping up surveillance. But more importantly, I think for this committee is very quickly, Senator Bozeman, I want to talk about over the last year what we deployed. Over $1 billion, $1.3 billion since we walked into the door last January 2025 has been invested and deployed to battle just the New World screwworm. We have been forward-leaning. EPA just approved some new fly technologies we've announced just the last few days, which will significantly increase our ability to battle this through sterile flies. We also broke ground on our Moore air-based sterile fly facility in Texas about 6 months ago. That's a $750 million project. And that also opening up a dispersal facility earlier this year for the first time, and outfitting a facility in Matapa, Mexico that will open this month that will increase our sterile fly production by 100 million flies. That all happened because of what we implemented over a year ago in preparation for this moment. And
so the response is in motion because the threat was ignored. Next, Senator Roger Marshall says the quiet part out loud. The Biden team saw this coming and refused to act. Any day now.
First of all, I think it's important Americans realize there's no threat
to the food supply.
To the food supply.
Correct.
And trying to explain this to people is a little tough, but you and I grew up on ranches, and first of all, no rancher would take an animal with this big, ugly, fleshy wound to the locker plant, first of all.
Correct.
Second of all, even if a human ate, let's say it's a deer. Let's say you shot a deer and you're eating this and it happened to have this screwworm in it, that our own digestive system would destroy that. I think that's important to point out. I think it's important to point out that we saw this coming under the previous administration and they refused to respond. When you let millions of people migrate through Central America this way, we saw the screwworm just come with them, whether it was on their pets or maybe they were bringing livestock. And unfortunately, visiting the border before, I saw so many of these people with open flesh wounds themselves that could have been one way to get it across the border. We saw it happening. And we were down to just basically a male mosquito screwworm fly being sterilized in Panama. But the next step, so we sat on it. We prayed about it. We tried to monitor it. But you also invested money in the laboratory in Mexico as soon as, like within days after you took office, we talked about this. So
Right.
Take us through that process of what we've done in Mexico. Again, you had a time to touch on it. So the second you get into office, you're on this. So just run us through that again.
Yeah, Senator, thank you. We saw it coming. The fact that it had been out of America since 1966, had been out of Central America and down past the Darien Gap for more than 30, 40 years. I think that that as it began to make its way north, starting in 2021, 2022, it gets into Central America. 2023 gets into South Mexico, and of course, 2024 begins to make its way through Mexico. Again, you need about 500 million sterile flies to eradicate. Once it was pushed past the Darien Gap back in the 60s and 70s, people just we stopped making the sterile flies. We got down to the 100 million in Panama. Within a matter of days, we got approval from the president I was sort of shocked that the last USDA really had no plans, hadn't really done anything. Said, we've got to build our own facility in America that will produce between 300 and 400 million flies per week so that we never let this happen again. Understanding that as a radiated facility, it normally takes a couple of years for permitting. Pete Hegseth, God bless him, and our Army Corps of Engineers permitted that facility in just 60 days, I believe, and then we broke ground, contracted within another month or so. So we have shaved years off of that timeline. But in the meantime, the Matapa facility was a fruit fly facility in Mexico that Mexico agreed to let us pay for, let us outfit. We started that last summer, and it is ready this month. That will be another 100 million flies that are coming online. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of money that has been invested to prepare for this moment.
Great.
Continuing right along here, he says it didn't sneak up on anyone. It was watched and waved through under Biden. Rollins drives the point home with the question the regime media won't ask. Why did Biden's USDA do nothing?
I say all of that because what I don't understand, Senator Hoeven, is how did the last USDA watch it coming for years? It broke the gap in 2021, moving up 2022, moving up 2023, spreading, hits Mexico 2024. There's no stopping it. There's not enough sterile flies. Why did no one do anything about it until we walked in the door in January and February of last year?
Well,
it is a question that I still don't understand, but we're making a lot of progress.
So this is where the Democrats got caught flat-footed. Senator Amy Klobuchar tried to suggest staffing cuts were the problem. Rollins shut that down immediately. A year and a half ago, she said that there were just 10 APHIS employees working full-time on the New World screwworm. Now there are more than 120. That's a 1,000% increase in 14 months under President Trump's team. On top of that, Rollins says the administration has deployed $1.3 billion, approved new sterile fly technologies, launched a $750 million production facility at Moore Air Base in Texas, expanded dispersal sites, and is opening a facility in Matapa, Mexico, this month to add 100 million sterile flies. That's what competent government looks like. Identify the threat, hit it early, and protect America's farmers and food supply. So the takeaway is rather simple. The food supply is safe. The The infected calf is recovering, the eradication strategy is proven, and the Trump administration is moving aggressively to crush the threat before it spreads. But the political lesson here is even bigger. Farm security is national security. Border security is biosecurity. And when leaders ignore obvious warnings during the previous administration, the damage does not stay at the border. And Brooke Rollins asked the question every American should be asking. How did the former USDA watch this move for years and do nothing until President Trump returned to office? That's not just incompetence. That's a betrayal of ranchers, producers, and families who depend on a secure food system. If you want more reporting the legacy media will not give you, share this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments yes or no. Should border failures that threaten America's farms be treated as a national security emergency? Let's have a conversation about this, and let's make sure that you and I stay connected. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We're cutting out the middleman. That is why we set up this secret number just for you. All you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands of patriots are already getting the notifications because we've cut out the middleman completely. I've heard what you guys have said. You're not getting notifications. You can't find us buried under countless CNN videos or MSNBC videos, whatever they call authoritative news on YouTube now. You know, they keep changing the rules. So we're just going to go ahead and cut them out altogether. Just text those words and you will stay connected and get the inside scoop and the news that you depend on to make informed decisions for your family. And let's celebrate the wins. Yes, America 250 is upon us, right around the corner. Make sure you have the gear that says that you're celebrating this great republic on its 250th birthday. Check out shop.nextnewsnetwork.com or simply go to the merch shelf below this video and pick out something you like.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.